Glanced at Noel. Her big blue eyes were wide, fixed on Calvin like he was the first star she'd seen in a dark sky. Her small hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair, knuckles white. For 2 years, he had watched her fade, quiet, withdrawn, no longer begging butterflies or climb the oak tree in their backyard. He spent millions on hospitals, on experimental drugs, on surgeons who'd flown in from Switzerland and Japan, all of them leaving with empty apologies and thick bill. What did he have to lose? 5 minutes, Harrison said, his voice rough. That's all you get. If you so much as scare her, you're off my property before you can blink. Calvin's smile didn't falter. Thank you, sir, that's all I need. Harrison signaled to his driver, Marcus, a broad man who worked for the Arden family for 20 years. Marcus opened the car door, his eyes narrowing at Calvin as if he were sizing up a threat. Harrison lifted Noel out of her wheelchair, his movements gentle, careful, as if she were made of glass. She rested her head on his shoulder, her tiny fingers twisting the fabric of his suit jacket. The iron gates rumbled open and the car glided up the long, tree-lined driveway to the Arden mansion. 3 stories of white stone, floor-to-ceiling windows, a fountain that sparkled in the morning sun. It was a palace, the kind people saw in movies, but it had felt like a prison since Noel got sick. Harrison carried Noel to the sunroom at the back of the house, a glass-walled space filled with potted flowers and a plush white couch. He set her down gently, tucking a blanket around her legs. Marcus, get warm water, Harrison ordered, a basin, and tell the kitchen to bring whatever fresh herbs they have, mint, lavender, anything green that's not poisonous. Marcus hesitated. Mr. Arden, are you sure about this? The boy's a stranger. We don't know anything about him. I don't care, Harrison snapped. Do it. Marcus left and the room fell quiet. Noel stared at Calvin, who stood in the doorway, his scuffed sneakers silent on the marble floor. He didn't gawk at the luxury around him, didn't fidget or beg. He just stood there, calm, like he belonged. Your house is pretty, Noel said, her voice small. Calvin stepped closer, keeping a respectful distance. It is, but my grandma's house has better flowers. She grows them in a little garden behind our apartment. They heal people. And flowers really fix my legs? Noel asked. Harrison tensed, waiting for the lie, the false hope, but Calvin didn't hesitate. I don't know yet, he said honestly, but I'm gonna try for you. Marcus returned with a porcelain basin, steaming water, and a tray of fresh herbs, rosemary, mint, chamomile, and a leafy green plant Harrison didn't recognize. Calvin knelt beside the couch, rolling up the sleeves of his tattered shirt. His hands were small, calloused, like he worked with them every day. May I? He asked Noel. He nodded, her bottom lip tucked between her teeth. Calvin poured the herbs into the warm water, stirring it gently with his fingers. The scent filled the sunroom, soft, earthy, nothing like the sterile chemicals of the hospitals. He took Noel's tiny foot in his hand, his touch so light it barely grazed her skin. Harrison held his breath. He'd watched therapists touch her legs 100 times. Noel never reacted. Her legs were dead weight, unfeeling, broken. But when Calvin's fingers wrapped around her foot, she flinched. Tiny, almost imperceptible flinch. Harrison's heart stopped. Is that hurt? Calvin asked soft. Noel shook her head. It feels tingly, like when my foot falls asleep, but nice. Calvin nodded, focusing. He massaged her foot slowly, pressing his thumbs into her arch, circling her ankle, his movements precise, practiced. He didn't rush. He didn't talk. He just worked, his eyes locked on her foot like he was pouring something invisible into her skin. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Harrison didn't say a word. Marcus stood in the corner, his arms crossed, his skepticism melting into confusion. Calvin lifted Noel's foot from the water, drying it with a soft towel. He moved to the other foot, repeating the process, the same gentle pressure, the same quiet focus. When he finished, he sat back on his heels, wiping his hands on his shirt. Try to wiggle your toes, he said. Noel looked at her father, panic and hope mixing in her eyes. I can't, Daddy, you know I can't. Just try, Calvin said, for me. Harrison knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Go on, baby, just try. Noel took a deep breath. She stared at her legs, her face scrunching in effort. For a second, nothing happened. Harrison's chest tightened, another failure, another heartbreak. Then, her big toe moved. A small twitch, barely visible, but it moved. Noel's mouth fell open. Daddy, did you see that? Harrison couldn't speak. He stared at her toe, his vision blurring. He'd spent 2 years begging for this one.